Should work. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up, a very DIY edition here, literally live via my smartphone today because of ongoing computer issues. Yay. Joining me today though is my guest Nat from NOLA in the States, from the band We Do Not Belong Here. How is it going today, man? Are you having a better day than I am?
Yeah, I think I'm having a better day than you. It's been a pretty lazy Sunday, just been taking it easy all weekend.
Yeah, don't blame me, man. I wish I could do the same as well. So what I found interesting with your music, from what I can remember, was you've got this. I don't know if anyone said this before. I found it. I read that it's kind of got like black metal mixed with emo, and I listened to it and I can hear that. I still don't know how I would describe it to anyone, and I don't mean that in an insulting sense at all, because it's like took these two scenes that I don't know a total lot about myself, to be honest. And so I guess this is going to be a bit of a multi-layered question. How would you describe your music to someone? And then the second part, what kind of inspired you to meld these two very different scenes together?
Yeah, so we've just been using the kind of shorthand like Blackened, Sceamo. I'm not positive that that's really an accurate description. I've seen like review sources calling it like metalcore, like post-hardcore. I genres are made up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it really just comes from Troy, who plays guitar and does vocals as well, and We Do Not Belong Here. And AJ, who's the drummer, they both come from a very like metal background. Troy has toured with Bargest for quite a long time. That's like a black and death metal kind of thing.
Nice.
And they have a band now together, the two of them, called Faustian, which they put a record out earlier this year. They're doing very well, and it's the same kind of thing. It's pretty like traditional black and death. Like exactly what you think that is, right?
Yeah.
And it's sweet. I mean, I love both those bands. I, on the other hand, have always played in emo bands. So I play bass in emo and indie bands. And but I started playing with Troy maybe 4 years ago at this point, because he has a solo project. It's kind of like this kind of bummer folk music. I started playing bass for him, and we just kind of started talking about trying to find something we could collaborate on. In the realm of being in an emo band, I've always been the person pushing to get the band heavier. So, wanted to be doing that kind of vibe. And so we didn't really know what we were going to do going into it. It was what we knew was that we had these three people and that I was doing lead vocals, and then we were just going to see where it ended up. And I think that's the big thing about why I feel like we're kind of hard to pin down is what's going on is we've kind of adopted this mentality of we only say yes to ideas. If anyone brings something to practice, we try it.
Yeah.
There's nothing is shot down. Like the last record on the song, there's like this big acoustic outro that is very out of place. If you were to just zoom out, but like in the song, it works super well. And it's just kind of that mentality of like, hey, we're gonna try anything.
I like that though, that you've got this open approach to music. I find that always interesting with musicians and people as a whole when they can say have a bass, that can be the favorite starting point or their favorite genre, but then they're open to other music. And I often say on a lot of episodes of the show, some of the best ideas for film and music as a whole are taken from outside of those particular scenes and genres. I think because you can bring in a different perspective, a different approach, and when you combine two aspects that are different as well, I think it just gives something quite unique. And I think that's a good thing here in that. well, some people might disagree with me. I was going to say it's a good thing hearing that people have had a problem pigeonhole, trying to put a label on your music or pigeonhole it here. But I like the fact that you're also doing, hey, we're going to play this music. This is what we're like. We're from these different scenes. We're going to put this together. We're going to do kind of, I guess, like a heavier version of emo mixed with some black metal as well. It's different. I remember on one of the songs I heard, and I had the same kind of trouble, and I'm not complaining here, as you mentioned with some of the reviewers. I was listening to it and thought, well, I can hear the emo. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on emo or indie, a little bit. The same with black metal, and I thought, well, this is different. I haven't really heard anything like this before. I've heard, Blackened punk styles, some Blackened hardcore, grindcore, and you get the usual Blackened thrash and death and things like that. But I've never come across anybody who's took emo and mixed it with black metal, a bit in the hardcore scene. You get the screamo or the emo crossover bands, same with post-punk and stuff like that. I've heard that's pretty much been my only exposure to that melding. So it's very interesting that this has naturally come together with you all as well. And that's not a bad thing. It's always nice to be different as well. I'm kind of nerding here, but it just piqued my imagination.
Yeah, I mean, there's some bands that I think are doing or have in the past done like a similar kind of crossover. But it's funny because I mean, like I'm wearing this Portrayal of Guilt shirt. Portrayal of Guilt's probably my favorite active band right now, which I would say is definitely kind of combining those Blackened vibes with
interesting.
But we sound completely different. There's nothing, almost no similarities. We are clearly picking different things from that music, but you can hear that that's what's the vibe. There's this band from Canada, Respire, that kind of does more of like a grandiose kind of, all the songs are 8+ minutes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the classic Japan's Envy, to me, is kind of a similar thing. But like I said, we don't sound like any of those bands, but they're all bands I love. So,
Yeah, well, it's cool though, because you can still subconsciously draw from them. We're obviously still going to be influenced by everything around us that we like, from many things, but then you're coming up with your unique perspective as well, which certainly is good. And that's very, very interesting. So do you think then, and the reason I'm going to ask this, because this point has come up a lot on the shows about the oversaturation with music now, kind of like the double-edged sword with music. It's helped, for marketing purposes, the music get out there. It's great me and you can have this conversation here. Well, not so great via my phone, but anyway, that's a whole other topic for another show. So that's the positive, but then the other side is there's so much now. There's so many, so many bands and music out there, as you rightly said, these genres. I mean, I think somebody's inventing a new genre every day, sometimes in a negative sense. Oh yeah, we'll call it that. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It's just, I don't know, post wallpaper car or something.
Right.
So do you think with you, I mean, you mentioned some of the other bands who've done this, but you sound completely different. Do you think that's helped We Do Not Belong Here stand out, amongst all that saturation, because you've got something unique, a little different as well, not so common? I know you mentioned there's a few bands, but still quite relatively, not compared to Black and Death, say that, oh yeah, everyone's heard of, say, like the Black and Death bands. A very long-winded question here, but I just wondered if what your thoughts are on it, if it's helped you propel you, out from the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely notice, oversaturation from, everything from live shows to how we get music out there. Like everything is kind of, I mean, I've booked shows for a very long time. So, I see that from every single piece of the business. As far as like our music kind of, standing in a different space, we've definitely noticed that that's been a benefit to us. We kind of worked on this project, not in secret, it wasn't that, but we just weren't really playing shows. We took the time to write the record and have the record done and everything before we really kind of started trying to get out there. And it's definitely had us stand out, right off the jump. Getting hit up for bigger things than,
that's cool.
From a band right off the jump, getting good reviews, and everyone's, pointing out like, hey, this is really unique,
It is.
Which is validating, because I mean, we took a lot of time getting it right, there was one reviewer that like talked about like all the risks, and I'm like, oh, thank you, finally someone acknowledged it, because I was like, oh man, I think people may hate this.
Well, that's really good that it's getting positive feedback, it's getting positive reviews. I was going to ask you about that, because I was quite curious as what people were saying, what the comments were. I think as well, it's an album that could grow on people. They might approach it first thinking, oh, this is going to be horrible, say black metal melded with emo. And then when you actually sit down and listen to it and take the time to listen to it as well, I think it will grow on people. And, again, getting back to that point about being different, that I always like to hear in any music, someone who will say, combine a different element, and sometimes it can be even something simple, we'll add in this instrument here from this particular genre or different style of music, combine it wherever, and it can be, say, a simple arrangement here and there, but it works. And I'm just kind of, I'm taking an assumption here, but I'm probably guessing maybe that's what's happened with a lot of people as well who've listened to We Do Not Belong Here, that they've maybe gone in there thinking, right, this won't work, and then they've listened and grown it, and actually, no, this has been put together very well. It's just one of my observations when I was listening to it.
Yeah, I think it was. I believe it was a review from Evermetal in the UK. I can't remember the writer's name off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But I believe it was that review that he described the music as challenging. Like, it's it kind of you got to kind of buy in, to feeling it. But I mean, I'm glad for that. When we talked about starting the project, I mentioned, the Faustians, Blackened death metal, and they're doing the thing, the bullet belts, the whole nine yards. Like it is exactly what it should be. And then my emo band that's been active for about closing in on a decade. Nice. We are really dedicated to an aesthetic. So constantly you're bringing riffs and going, oh, well, is this perfectly fit what we're gonna do? And all the ideas that get rejected. And I think that's what's really kind of keeping this band feeling different, is that we're all saying yes to everything. I think it's the third song on the record, Faith or Fucked, has. Oops, can I swear?
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Faith or Fucked has this guitar riff, we'll call it, for the intro / chorus. It's a straight like grunge riff. Reminds me of like Alice in Chains. This kind of like discordant chord thing. It's a second inversion, and AJ's playing this like really 90s drum beat, and then we do that, and there's a part between, we do it again, and then we go into like a straight trem part, and if you haven't like bought in, that will definitely throw you for a loop. Like, it goes from clean vocals and a kind of groovy part to just straight tremolo picking.
But again, as you were saying, it's adding those extra layers, it's hooking people in, it's throwing in a few nice surprises here from things they may be familiar with as well. I've got to ask then as well, has it been very different playing in We Do Not Belong Here compared to your emo band, or has it kind of been very similar?
It's been different. I'm taking a really similar approach. So, and that band, in my other band, I'm bass player and secondary vocalist. So I still do a lot of vocals. And we've always been a really, we're definitely on the more post-hardcore side of emo. So it's an intense live show kind of vibe. Like we don't stop, we transition between every song. So it's like, you know, you're going to get a half hour plus of just like super loud, intense music. And that's something we've been trying to do with We Do Not Belong Here, you know, still getting all that in place, but, you know, trying to have super intense shows. My thing with playing live is that what I enjoy the most from going to shows, which is my favorite way to experience music. I'm not really an album person. I definitely am a live show person, is like that intensity. I love to like feel something when I watch a performance. So we're trying to kind of to do similar things. So I don't know. I'm still getting used to, you know, fronting a band, and that's definitely a challenge. But I think I'm getting there.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's growing all the time as a musician as well. I'm just wondering. I know the intensity with post-hardcore as well, the emotion that goes into the music, and putting that across to people when they're watching live as well. Did that help with We Do Not Belong Here, with that, you know, with bringing in the black metal, kind of bringing that emotion which could go with the rawness from black metal?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely like playing to my strengths. So my vocals are really not that different than what I usually do. You know, except for I usually switch between singing and screaming, and the emo band. And this, I'm just, you know, screaming all the time. But it's, you know, at this point, like I can do that. I'm really comfortable with it. I do it all the time. And then the other, I mean, I write like half the lyrics for my emo band. I'm used to, you know, kind of being, you know, autobiographical and putting a lot out there. So that wasn't weird to me either. You know, it's something I've had a lot of practice with.
So has that always come naturally to you then, writing from a creative point from within, from your experiences, the environment around you?
Yeah, I'm always really impressed with people who can write about things they haven't experienced, or not writing any sort of like internalized lyric structure. That's just my baseline. I've tried to do the other way, and I can't ever come up with anything I find compelling. So it's always you know, at the very least my point of view, or about how I feel.
Yeah, it's the best way. I mean, I say it all the time with guests on the show. It makes things more authentic. It adds a bit of that blood into the writing and the lyrics as well, because it's an actual experience somebody has gone through, or sharing their perspective on something. I think it might differ a bit with, I was going to say it might differ a bit if you're writing kind of a concept, say science fiction or something, but you're still going to put some of yourself in there, because you're going to imagine, say, that society or that world in this particular time. And even if it's like steampunk or Blade Runner-esque, you're still going to put a bit of yourself in there and what's happening. They've still got those real world qualities. And like you said, Nat, I think if someone said, write a song for me about this particular area, and said something I haven't got experience in, I would find that really difficult, and it wouldn't feel very authentic to me. Whereas I said, write about being fed up, cue for the show. Well, I'm always fed up, so I can do that quite easily. Damn, because the computer isn't. So and I think again, it just makes everything just that little more palatable and real for the listeners as well, especially when you get into deep dives about the music, what's inspired it. So this is a perfect segue for those who haven't come across We Do Not Belong Here before. What were some of the influences and themes behind the music and the lyrics for this one?
Yeah, so for the music, which we've kind of talked a bit about already, you know, we pulled from a lot of places. Like I mentioned before, Patrella Guild's my favorite band. I listen to that all the time. I remember talking about Envy when we were working on the music. AJ would definitely have more metal references for you because I don't
So
have.
we can do a follow up.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other stuff we were really listening to a lot. It's been a little while since we wrote this chunk of material, so I'm kind of blanking. As for lyrics, I don't really know that I drew from any influences besides myself. I didn't.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I'm not influenced by anything else. I
No,
just
I know what you mean.
I've been writing for a really long time and feel like I have a fairly distinct voice in terms of how I put things together. I don't always like it, but I feel like always thought when I wrote it. And yeah, I just kind of talked about my own experiences. So there wasn't really any external influence on it, really. I didn't. Trying to think of some themes we really kind of cover in it in terms of big metaphors and things like that. On the second track, A Life Explained, I used this big changing of seasons metaphor, which is it was actually a song I had written when I was like 16, and it was stuck in my head. I never wrote it down, but I remembered this one line and just kind of repurposed that one line and wrote a whole song about it. Troy wrote Faith or Fucked, which was definitely kind of pulling from talking about, a religion that essentially is saying if you don't follow this, then you're completely fucked. Shame is talking about, living with shame in our own skin, and Strange Scope in Today's World, which is kind of the whole thesis of the band, is just that it's really weird to exist right now in this weird space that feels very in between. Like, I feel like the world's going to be completely different in like 15 years. And I feel like this is kind of a transition period, which kind of relates to the name of the band, which was kind of us talking about we're not positive that where we live is going to be habitable in 25 to 50 years, and not to get political on your show if that's not.
Oh yeah, you're fine. I'm going to follow up with some of this, so don't worry.
Yeah, Deep South is just kind of a hotbed of racism and homophobia and transphobia and all that, and it's just feels like people should like we don't belong here.
I really can empathize, Nat. I like to do this short to give people a giggle as well, bit of a break. As I say, Fed Up, but it's a comedy title. Like I said, I'm always fed up about something. Come on the show, tell me why you're fed up. Just realized how that sounded, but yeah, moving on. Man, it's been one of those days. It really has. But yeah, it is worrying because you kind of feel like the world's going backwards at the moment. We there's so much anger and hate around, and it's in everything. I've mentioned this with other guests. Like, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. I watch them all. I watch all the different wrestling shows, even WWE, which is my least favorite, but I still watch it. And if you go on any of the social media sites, you see people raging at each other. And look, I'm not saying no one has the right to disagree. We can get into a debate, but when people start being really hateful with it and personal and going away, and you're thinking, what the hell's wrong? It's like that with polytricks and everything, where we're just going to shout at each other. We're not going to try and find a middle ground or try and sometimes you've got to agree to disagree to move forward. There's none of that, and then if you look at, and again, I'm not going on a political rant here. I'm not political at all. Certainly not anymore. I just try to be a cool person and be okay with who's okay with me. Try and put that positivity out there. but it's alarming when, you said, about it possibly not being very habitable there in 15 to 20 years. And I got the sense you're not just referring to, I guess, the political and social situation, it's the climate as well. And this is happening all over the planet. We've now got places that are getting snow where they've never had snow before, and then the same with the hot weather. I mean, historically, say, colder climates becoming stupidly hot, and like, for example, like here, this is probably going to become the new Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean is now getting like the Middle East, for example. And yet there's still folks who seem to be, right, this isn't happening. And I'm like, this isn't a political issue. It's not where you stand politically. Just have a look at what's happening in our own experiences where we're living. And it is quite alarming that it's happening in a short space of time. And like you said, so where are we going to be, say, in 15 to 20 years with this? As usual, if people are just, it's like, I guess I'll put it, it's like that joke, when you, this has come up in so many shows, when you go in one of those metal clubs and they've got like a hole in the wall, and they're like, yeah, we'll get around to fixing that. Like 30, 50 years later, it's still there. It's become like a historical landmark to it. And it's I'm thinking, come on, we've got to do something, invest in the infrastructure, meet this. And again, I'm not saying I'm an expert. This could well be happening in some parts of business and industry in the world, but I'm just talking about like what you said, Nat, what we're seeing in a first-hand real world sense, and then what's around us. And I feel sorry for what you were saying about the South. Yes, that's the first thing you hear instead of about the music, and I feel sorry for the people that do not think that way. That then can be a stereotype as, everybody's like that, and I'm like, dude, we're all the same at the end of the day. It's crazy. So you've answered quite a few questions there I was wondering what inspired the name. If it was something like that, we do not belong here. We don't quite feel at home or part of this, even like as if you're nomads in your own area, which is a very strange feeling as well. I will let you get a word in edgeways now. I've just realized I've talked for a long time.
That's okay. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I mean, I think it's like, I've lived in Southeast Louisiana my whole life, and I'm not super young anymore, but I'm not old. I'm like 30, I'm 31. So, and I think I've lived through 3 hurricanes that were considered like once in a lifetime hurricanes. I've lived through 200-year flood events, and I'm like, well, if all that happened in 30 years, I don't think, I think the new normal is a little different. And you're talking about a part of the country here where most of your population center is susceptible to flooding. It's a bit of a misconception, it's always New Orleans is below sea level, and that is absolutely true for some parts of the city, but it's mostly just that if you have a bad storm come in, the only thing that keeps the water out is flood protection, and those systems are being undermined. And then you look at like this summer, we are actually in it's here, and I believe it's the parts around the Pacific Northwest, around Oregon, Portland. We're actually in a rainforest. We get so much rain a year that's a special climate category. If you're into growing plants, they have a little number system, and we have our own little special category because we get so much rainfall. And we had almost no rain from May to the end of August. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. We usually have rain every single day. So it's just crazy to me that people are not noticing, it's always hot here, but we had, whole weeks above 105 Fahrenheit every day, and that's insane. So I mean, we're talking about that physical thing, right? Of that, the planet doesn't think we belong here because we've done mucked it all up, and then the social aspect, which I think I work in a very public facing local government job. So I see the dredges of how people can behave.
Yeah.
I think I may be a little more cognizant of that than other people, but
Yeah.
in that way that we also don't belong here.
Yeah. I've when I was in college, worked in a few retail stores, and I'm going to sound so delightful when I say this. There's nothing so wonderful than working with the public. You really do see the best in people, don't you? I remember working in a gaming store, and I got rotated in to work the day after Christmas Day, which they call Boxing Day here, which is like Christmas Day 2.0, I guess. And of course, then you got all the aunties, the nanas, and everybody coming into the store. My nephew, son, whatever, didn't like this game, got him for Christmas. Oh, it's your fault. And yes. That was absolutely horrendous, man. But it's I have a friend as well who works in a veterinary clinic, and he said to me, you think other like public facing roles are bad, and anyone who works in for the police or whatever probably sees the finest aspects as well. He said for the treatment of animals, he said we literally do see the worst in that kind of job. And he saw a lot of horrible stuff during COVID as well. He told me about, and that often didn't bring out the finer aspects of humanity, sadly. But then I can see how then that influences songs from a lyrical standpoint, venting out that frustration as well in a positive way. So I can see how that certainly has an impact there. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit here. So do you still have any optimism or hope for the future? Do you think we'll get to a little bit of a better place, maybe get to more of a balance, or are you more on the lines of, due to sort of, I guess, kind of general apathy sometimes, of brushing it under the rug or leaving things to too last minute, that we might leave it a bit too late? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, in a typical American fashion, I'm not super informed about what's going on your side.
Me.
But besides the headlines I read on AP, but as far as the states are concerned, I do actually have some hope. My main concern is that we're hitting a point where it's like two different worlds. You go to one state and they're doing everything in their power to take care of people, or to protect people that need to be protected, and doing what they can at the state level to protect the environment and things like that. And then like where we are in Louisiana, it is the exact opposite. We're clearly moving, we're actively moving in the opposite direction, and so you're seeing these diverging paths. And I'm hopeful that more people live in the places that I think are trying harder, and not super hopeful that these two paths can reconcile.
Yeah. Bit of a mixed one here as well, which I think probably goes the world over. And then sadly, there's some parts of the world where they just don't have the finances to even try to protect themselves. But I mean, this is, if you think this has been happening for a while, we've had, polar bears coming down from the North Pole, etc. So there's been signs of there. Not people thinking, they're going completely political. No, we're just pointing out just some things that we've seen in our lives and hearing about. I'd like to think now that we can get to a bit more of a positive balance. I always say this as well. I'm going to sound so cynical here. When it can kind of affect somebody's ability to make money, that's when they might start to listen. So I think that's how I'll say.
I mean, so a really famous example, I think, is going on right now in the state of Florida, not on the climate side, but on the social side, right, where Disney has come out to oppose the governor's various attacks against the LGBTQ community. And everyone's like, Disney's so great. I'm like, guys, I'm really glad Disney's doing that. awesome. But let's be real. It's because Disney realizes that they have a lot of customers who are a part of this community who won't do business with them anymore. So it's a business decision. And, you know, I wish people made decisions for the right reasons, but I'm happy they make the right decision, even if it's for a less than idealistic reason.
Yeah. At least there's some kind of positive positive there, even if the intention isn't entirely noble. Like I said, I just hope people can just, especially those that can do something about this, and just recognize it. As you said, you've got one state that's moving in the right direction, that we can start cooperating, because it's not a political issue for me. It's a case of trying to preserve habitat, future generations, which, if they want to look at it from a business perspective as well, like I said, it ties back in that ability to make profits, so which they want in place, because if there's nobody there to buy that, you know, whatever they're selling, there's no point. You know, it's like in a Mad Max movie with a dude sat there, you know, on top of all his money, and that's no good. No one to sell it to. So just turn it back to your music for a bit. No problem going off topic at all, Nat. It's a frequent thing we do on the show here, so it's no problem at all. Just for those that you know, who are interested in art and artwork and albums and everything, I'm just curious, you know, who did the cover for you, and you know, did you work with them to get the right feel?
Yeah, so my partner did the artwork for it, and she actually does the artwork for most stuff I do. She's a very talented visual artist.
Nice.
Ironically, she kind of came up with that completely independent, including the words. So I actually wrote a song. Okay, so here I go. I said I wasn't influenced. I actually wrote the.
Sorry, go on, man.
Based on the string of words "strange to cope in today's world." So she had that piece of art that she made very quickly. Actually, it was part of like a little rapid art exercise, and so she did that, and I was like, "Well, this is really cool." And it was like at the time we were working on the record, and I was like, "Ooh, I think this would work for this song. I like the way these words sound together." And I'm like, could we use this for album art? She's like, yeah, you know, it wasn't like she did more work on it since then, you know, it wasn't a finished piece at that point. So she did finish it after that. But yeah, that was the vibe. And then as far as the aesthetic, we had already talked about, we didn't want to do, you know, black and white. I wanted something colorful that would just kind of stick out, just because we feel like we kind of stick out. We don't really want to kind of blend into that vibe, even though I really love that vibe. It's just not what the music is. So yeah, that's how we came up with the art.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. As I was saying earlier, I like things that that aren't quite in one particular avenue or another. So that's always captivates me. I talked with a band couple of episodes back called the Medea Project, who are originally from South Africa and now they're in the UK, and they've got their kind of like gothic doom metal kind of essence there, but there's so much more with the music. They've got some tracks that are real pure goth rock and others, and I hope I've remembered this correctly, or they'll kill me, so sorry if I've not remembered this right, especially as it was only a couple of episodes ago. But I think, you know, sometimes people were having why we can't place them here or whatever, but it's still, the music still has their essence in them. It could be a different song, but it's still there. And I got that sense with you guys as well. You can still hear that spirit in the sound. And for me, it's a good thing because, you know, it's a good, perfect question to ask you. Is this also, you know, you as a musician from your background as well? And then with We Do Not Belong here is, you know, I like to challenge myself both musically, creatively, so I don't remain stagnant. I'm not just going to stay this. I like to propel myself forward, incorporate different elements and keep evolving. I know we can get that kind of frustration sometimes if a band moves too far away from what they are, and then you think, oh well, I might as well say just come up with a different name. But I'm like, well, as we've said in past shows with some of the other guests, as long as the essence is there, and yourself, you're making the music, you've got to enjoy what you're doing. And even if you said, right, for this album, we're going to do something completely different, the music, the sound, completely different to what you're used to, but we want to do this. And no one is forcing anyone to listen to. So for me, is why limit yourselves? I just wondered if any of those points that I've mentioned there factored in with your music and creativity with the bands.
Yes, definitely. I'm just thinking a bit about response. So I believe the first thing you hit on was pushing myself, which I think is definitely was a factor here. I've been singing and doing vocals in bands for forever, but I've always been a supporting vocalist. And I was like, well, what would it be like to actually, grab the steering wheel and drive the bus? So, I mean, that to me was a big part of it. And then getting comfortable with the dexterity of that performance, right? Of being able to do fairly physically demanding vocals. Like the way I scream is pretty physically demanding, coupled with playing bass in a way I'm not super used to. I'm not I'm not uncomfortable, but it's not home base in terms of like how I play the instrument. So kind of finding two new skills at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely making me work hard, which I appreciate. I came from a very institutional background as far as music. I did the college music thing. I played jazz forever, orchestra,
nice.
the whole thing, right? So I mean, I come from like a very structured music background, and as you become an adult, you kind of move out of those worlds. It starts to lose some structure, and you can start to feel a little stagnant if you're not finding ways to push yourself. So yeah, I've definitely appreciated that. As far as trying to make new stuff, I think that's part of it as well. At least for me, there's so much music I love. You can't boil my taste down to 3 words, and I think that's the case for most people. And everyone tries so hard to like buy into a certain aesthetic or something, and try to say, "Oh, well, I only listen to this."
Yeah,
it's probably a lie. And there's just so much. I mean, I'm in 3 bands right now, and I can think of other bands I would love to be in, in like other roles I'd want to fill in a band. So, I mean, just kind of getting the opportunity to make music that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten to make is really important to me.
Yeah, and it's rewarding as well. And I say this all the time on the show with people. I'm not going to sit here and say, excuse me, getting a demon in my throat now. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't go through, the typical metal. If it's not death metal or whatever, it's not real. Rah, 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 rah. Yeah, and then it's, as you said, it's growing and thinking, hang on a minute, this is stupid behavior. You can still have your favorite music. Like I love hardcore. Hardcore. I absolutely love it. Started with death metal and then got more into hardcore, and I still like my death metal, but hardcore I absolutely love that. But it doesn't mean that I don't like any of the music, and you're completely right. And I always think when it's like kind of as if someone's having to pause brutal 24/7. I only listen to this all the time. Like you won't, you won't, because music is a mood thing. And sometimes you're not in the mood to hear somebody growling their head off and all the blast beats. We can listen to that, say, a lot, but you will listen to other music. It can be you will listen maybe to some softer styles in metal or in punk. And there's nothing wrong with that because, like I said, it's all about a mood, what we can be doing. I have very different music I listen to when I work out. it's all about that expression. We can have our favorite bass, and this was another reason why I rebranded the channel and relaunched it a few weeks ago. I thought, well, I'm a lover of music as a whole, and independent film and movies and many other things. And I thought, let's get people on talking about what they do, why they're creating this music as well. We'll get into a lot of deep dives about the creative process as well. And I've opened it up to all genres of music, even music I know nothing about or I don't even like. I'm asked. People will say, "Do you have to like my music to come on the show?" I'm like, no, absolutely, it doesn't matter. I will still talk to you. I mean, if I do, yeah, that's a bonus, but it doesn't matter to me. And the other one I can sometimes get is, "Oh, do you have to know a lot about this music or be a fan of this scene?" I'm like, no. Well, why would I put that limit on the show? I'll try to look for there's things there in common, and what, it might open us up to each other's music, or if not, at least get that respect and a conversation going. So I totally feel what you're saying. Why put that limit and cap on what you're doing? And again, there's no way somebody is going, I love another scene I love is grindcore. I'm not listening to grindcore 24/7. I've mentioned this on, I think, the last two shows, possibly. I know I definitely did in the Medea Project show. What I'm actually listening to at the moment, Matt, and it's not even any form of metal or punk, it's actually some electronic music. I've been listening to dark synth and dark techno. I've been really getting into that because I like the very futuristic sci-fi vibes in there. I like the aesthetic with it. It's different. Some of it's got very sinister, almost like sci-fi movie soundtrack. And then there's the lighter aspects with the synth, the clean vocals. And there's just something about it which got my attention. I thought, this is pretty cool. And that's what I've been listening to a lot lately. I'm sure there's somebody now probably spitting the beer out thinking, my God, he's not listening to a form of punk or metal. Let's kick him out the scenes. But yeah, I mean, that's you're completely right, man. And why limit yourself as a musician and a writer as well, man? It's keep evolving, isn't it, and going forward. And
yeah.
And I forgot what my point was with that very long-winded rant again.
No, I think you landed it. I mentioned earlier, like going to see music live is my favorite thing in the world. It's just, I enjoy it. And I remember it was 2016. I was like 1 or 2 years out of college, and finally like in a place where I could just go to shows all the time. And I remember, at first I was like, oh, well, there's no one really playing this weekend, or, that fits the vibe or whatever. And then I just started kind of going to everything. And I was like, oh, I realized I like almost anything. There's some aesthetic choices that I don't like that I think are, cross genres. Like I don't like a tough guy aesthetic. That could apply to hardcore, that can apply to hip hop, apply to metal, all those things. So I just typically don't like that aesthetic, regardless of the genre. And I started to realize, like, oh, I think things are way more interconnected than people think they are.
Definitely.
What I enjoy about something can be present in indie pop and can be present in an instrumental post-rock band. The thing that draws me in can actually be really similar from just a stylistic point. Because I think there's small things that draw you in or put you off.
Yeah, there is. I mean, if you want to put a comedy in, I'm going to upset somebody who's probably already foaming at me further. You're right about, as much as I love the music, we can have the tough guy kind of image aspect, even with hardcore and hip hop, usually where you have to stand in an urban area somewhere with your arms folded across your chest, not smiling, sticking it out as far as you can, vision chest. And sometimes, man, I get it. So I get it why it has to be done in some cases, but there's other times I think you can smile. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay to smile and just say we're going to play New York hardcore, for example. So yeah, I feel that definitely, man. And it was interesting you mentioned jazz as well, because I was chatting about that with Daniel from Tomb of Giants on the last show, and he brought up jazz, and I think he'd studied music theory as well, if I remember correctly, and certainly led jazz. And the interesting thing when you think of jazz as well, because it's so free flowing, free form, very much about the expression in the purest sense, and it could be applied to so many styles of music. Indeed, it's one of those genres I feel that's crossed with virtually, everything. There is a lot of jazz, multi-genre aspects across the whole spectrum. So that was interesting hearing you come from that background. Has that so the obvious question here on top of that, has that helped formulate how you arrange the structure of your music, how you compose and put the riffs together? Has any of that played into it, or am I totally barking up the wrong tree?
I don't think my jazz background really informs how I play the instrument, and
Okay.
any of the three, maybe one of them. Maybe. Yeah, actually, no. No, definitely one of them I can see where I'm pulling from. And this project, and Would Not Belong Here, definitely not. But that being said, I mean, I learned so much about, harmony and structures and everything like that from playing these, 3-hour, 4-hour gigs where we're improvising for time, right? We have a book of chord changes and everyone's just going for it. And I learned a ton, and I definitely apply that knowledge, if not how I play the instrument, which is fun, because especially in this band, I'm the only one with this very structured musical background. Troy and AJ are both, rock and metal dudes, come up through rock and metal bands, without all of that baggage and training. And there's some hilarious miscommunications sometimes where we're talking completely different languages, and I'm like staring at them and I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, we'll get there. We'll have to play. I'm like, I'll play it. I'm like, this is what I mean. Like, oh, well, this is what I mean. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, we're getting there.
That's good though. You've got that fun chemistry, and you can bounce off each other. That's pretty cool, man. I'm just curious as well on the merchandise side of things. Do you have any planned, maybe a vinyl release shirts or anything like that to support the release?
Yeah, we have right now we have cassettes and shirts, which I need to put the shirts on the Bandcamp. I keep forgetting to do that. Yeah. But we kicked around vinyl, but we put this album out ourselves. We didn't put it out with a label, and so we were just kind of like, oh, I don't know if anyone's gonna, Now I feel a lot more confident about the music now. It's been out for a week and some change. Not that I wasn't confident in the music, confident if people would enjoy it, Yeah. So, the tapes were a much more economical gamble, right? If you don't sell them all, it's not that big of a deal. Vinyl is
it's expensive, isn't it?
You have a couple hundred vinyls sitting in an extra room in your house, you've lost quite a lot of money. So I think that's definitely something we're going to look towards. Maybe not for this, unless we sell all the tapes super quick and we do a repressing, maybe we'd look at it. But definitely something we're probably looking at for, next release.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you planning to visit any of the states as well, help promote the release, get out there on the road?
Yeah, we're going to do as much as we can right now. Unfortunately, anything super big is probably not going to happen this year because my partner and I are having a baby in
congrats, man.
2.5, 3 months. So that's kind of taking up that bit of time. I mean, that being said, we're in a place where we can very easily pop out for 2 to 4 days and hit some other big cities, and that's the kind of thing we're looking at for this next 6 months, and then hopefully we're able to do something else more substantial summer next year kind of thing.
Build up, hit a few areas, and then expand, maybe get a longer tour as well. Excuse me, folks.
From our experience too, it usually, if you can hit a city a couple times in a row, it's always a good idea. So we have some contacts in some cities that are, like I said, not super far away. So hit those a couple times before we do something really big. So we have some nice, good anchor cities for a bigger run. So that's the plan.
Yeah, and I'd be interested in hearing what people's responses are when you play these songs live as well, particularly with everything we've been saying with genre blending being a little different, particularly when you get to areas outside the local scene where they may not have heard the band before. So I'd be very definitely have to get with you on that. Be curious to see what people say. And I know you mentioned, you love going to live shows, and obviously we love playing them. It's going to be one of my multi-layered questions again. So when you playing live and seeing them live, obviously it's any musician who says they don't like playing live, well, there'll probably be some who don't, but I'd imagine it's one of the greatest and most rewarding experiences possible on the positive side, not so much on the negative. You suck, because you're seeing how people are reacting to the music that you've created, and you get that atmosphere. And I wondered, from your side, as putting your hat on as a fan as well, when you're seeing people you like play live, do you enjoy, not only seeing the music obviously being played live, but it gives you a sense of who really can either sound what they're like when we listen to them on, MP3 or whatever, or they can even sound even better? Is that what it is to you as well? It's like, I'm seeing this firsthand. Just realized I should have focused on the band part first, then come to this.
No, you're fine. I mean, so I think, looking at it as a fan and as both a performer, I think that if you want to get into the theory of art and
go for it, man. Yeah.
I think making a record and performing live are almost a completely different art form. And I think people kind of discount that. To me, I'm not super concerned if you can 100% replicate what you recorded. I'm concerned whether or not you can put on a really, really good show. And that means different things for different kinds of bands. If you're seeing like a post-hardcore band or a punk band, that means like the most energetic performance you've ever seen.
Yeah, very.
I tend to listen to like the emo and stuff I'm into tends to be like the more like dirgy, very intense variety, right? So I want that whole like solemn vibe. So it's the special performers to me are the people that when you see them, you feel like you've come away with a completely new experience, rather than, oh, I saw them play XYZ album live. It's, oh, I saw them live, and it was a completely different thing than when I listened to the record. I mean, obviously you're going to hear the same songs, but I just think it's very different. I mean, for me personally, as a musician, if I couldn't play live, I wouldn't play music. Just totally. Recording an album is fun, but for me, it's very tedious very quickly, and there's a lot of details that I'm not going to say I don't care about them or don't see the importance. It's just I'm immediately thinking about how we're going to perform it. I can play to in a living room to 10 people 5 states over. I can play to like a packed ballroom size place here, and I'm just as nervous every time. I can't eat before I play, or I'll vomit. It's like that is the that's it for me. That adrenaline rush of performing and the feeling I get is like the whole point.
Yeah, and that shows it's real, Nat, and that's good to hear that you still get those nerves, that adrenaline rush, because that's a good thing. It shows that you obviously are still excited about it, you still have that passion and care about it. Because when that stops happening and say somebody's just going through the motions, that's when I think they're not enjoying being a part of that band or a performer anymore. It's time to maybe move on to play something different or another band, etc. It's the same, believe it or not, when I go and train. I get that excited. I'll have to use the bathroom sometimes before I go there. Excited. Oh God, yeah. Oh, there we go. There's a bleeper. What a thing to say live. Yay! But you know, it's that excitement, and then that adrenaline, and then when I get there, and that rewarding feeling of a sense of accomplishing something, working through sets or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I've done that. And it's I think people can forget as well that musicians, like you said, they're still fans as well. They got into playing the music because they love music and want to play music. So I'd imagine in some senses it can be doubly intense because you have those fan nerves, and then being a musician, you're aware of how the fans are feeling, how people are going to be feeling, and what they're expecting. So that can play into it as well. Like you said, I hope you put on a live show if it's the high energy punk or emo. Want that high energy to get across to people, really amps up the atmosphere. So yeah, I totally can relate to all of that as well. Pity I couldn't edit out that bathroom part, but anyway. Hey.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's I often think, you know, stood on stage or wherever, whatever kind of show it is, sharing that music with people and seeing how they react, getting that response and doing what you love. It must be one of the, yes, it can be certainly a labor of love creating these albums, recording, very time consuming, very exhausting, mentally challenging at times as well, because you're wanting to put the right riffs, the right, etc., so it all forms together. But at the end of it, it must be so rewarding when you get out there and then you're seeing people clearly enjoying themselves to the music that you've created. That must be one of the most satisfying and, like I said, rewarding gifts a musician can receive, in my opinion. Stating the obvious.
No, I mean, and you know, I have bandmates, you know, and other projects that they like playing live, but you know, if they didn't play live for whatever reason, they would still record and make music and stuff like that. So I think it varies too from person to person, you know, on how much that means to them. Like I have one of the other guitar players in my other project, you know, he's all about the craft. He's, you know, his little tiny details. He wants to get 100% right. He wants to do all that. And yeah, he loves playing live, but like we're about to record an album with that band. He's just like fully nerding out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go play bass, you know, like I'm excited about it. I'm excited about playing all that music on stage. And I think it's, you know, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it is. Let's get a quick shout about some of those other bands as well. So could you mention some info about those other bands you're playing, the music, and you know, we'll put all the links to all of the bands, obviously including We Do Not Belong Here when we're done today as well, just so people can go and check them out as well.
Yeah, so first I'll start with the folk band with Troy Bennett is aptly named Troy Bennett's Graveyard Lips. So if you want to hear 2/3 of We Do Not Belong Here play sad folk music, you know, that exists. I play bass and synth on that record. And then my emo band that I've been doing for a long time is called Wonder Kid.
Nice name.
Yeah, we have 2 EPs, some singles, a live record, and a record coming out probably in the spring. So there's a good bit of music there if you're interested in it.
Yeah, it's nice cross range there as well. That's pretty cool. So so out of the songs that you've got on the release, another one I'm going to put you on the spot. Are there any particular, going to be multi-layered question again, habit of mine, are there any particular favorites, and then any of those songs that personally, you really identify with and hold a special place in your heart?
I think my favorite track on the record is Shame. One, selfishly, that intro bass riff is just so much fun to play, and it's live. You just get I get to play drop tune power chords on bass and headbang. Like, it's just fun. And in terms of lyrics, the whole record is autobiographical, to some extent or another. But that one, I think, is pretty on the nose about some things that have been going on that I really hold dear. And then as far as just the thing too that makes that song really cool is Troy and I had actually tried to start a band that probably would have ended up pretty similar to this. I don't know, maybe 2018. 2019, somewhere around there. And that's actually at least two of those riffs were the first song we started working on. And when we started this project, I was like, hey, remember this thing that never saw the light of day? Here's these riffs. Let's use them. They're cool riffs. And so it's fun to bring that idea that we had already had that I was really happy with, that we could actually get that out. I think it's the whole middle chorus or verse or whatever you want to call it. I have a hard time identifying parts of the songs, but pretty much anywhere there's vocals in that song except for the outro, that was the thing we had worked on in the past.
Yeah. No, that's really really cool, man. Really interesting. So what did you then? Tough one. What did you enjoy the most about making this album? And are there any funny experiences you can share with us? And those points when it happens with the creative process and many things, with any form of playing music and writing. Were there any moments where you thought, man, the music we're just not quite getting it today, we're not quite feeling it? So how did you get past those challenging moments as well?
Yeah, so we recorded this with James Hightower at James Whitten at Hightower Studios. Okay, got it. And in New Orleans, I've recorded with him a few times. He did all of Troy's stuff as well. He's a really fun to work with, and what I definitely like the most about it is we kind of came in and we're like, hey, we want to do this kind of stripped down. We didn't track to a click. We didn't track individually. It was all live in a room, and then vocals over. That was it.
Nice.
There's one or two guitar hits on the record, and that's it. But it was all performed live, 4-click from the drum. Here we go. And I loved it. It was fun. I felt like the energy came across because of that. It felt like we're playing a show. It was really enjoyable. I had one bass over. So if you strange in today's world, there's this sample, and then after the sample, there's just this roaring feedback. And when we went to go track it, we realized, the amps are in the room, you can't get the feedback. So to get the feedback, we overdubbed it, and my pedal board was still in the main room with everything muted. And James would hit start, and then Troy would turn everything on, and I just stood in front of this cabinet at 120 dB of feedback, playing part. it was fun. You know, I'm glad it only took about 10 minutes to do because I don't know how long I could have stayed in there, but it was a blast. As far as like challenges, so there's a really big one. I had a terrible sinus infection.
Oh,
while we
nasty.
recorded. And so the first day we did it, and you know, we did all the tracking and not tracking. We did, you know, all the instruments down. I was like, okay, we're gonna go back the next day and do vocals. And I remember we're driving to the studio, and I'm sitting in the van. And I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna do my best, but like I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And get there, I'd already had like 3 cups of tea. I had a throat coat, 4 more cups of tea. It's, you know, I'm doing a take, drink a whole mug of tea, just trying to do everything as like loose as humanly possible. Probably drank 1.5 gallons of water. And I remember we're like halfway through, and James is like, "Well, you sound great, so we're just gonna go until you lose your voice. That's where, as long as you're okay with it, we're just gonna keep going." And I remember like, okay, I'll hang on, and we did the tracks. So the last track I recorded vocals on was Strange to Go, and I remember finishing that last section where so Troy's singing the refrain, and I'm like kind of screaming it rhythmically again. And we like finish it. I hold the last note, and I go to the mic and I'm like, "Hey, how was that take?" And he's like, "Oh, you're done. It's great." And I'm like, I'm gonna listen to it, and I was thrilled that it was a good take because I definitely at that point was completely toast,
on the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. How would you know, because this is a bit of a different vocal style, so how would you keep your vocals healthy, or is it just, or do you just simply do lots of rest, or you got any particular techniques?
The big thing, you know, I have never had any formal vocal training. The big thing I've noticed is kind of listening to my body and feeling like, you know, like I said, I have been screaming in a demo band for a long time, so it's getting used to being able to do that for, you know, 10 plus days straight is definitely a learning curve. And just find the place like, okay, I can push this far and that doesn't hurt, you know, so I can do that. I can do that in perpetuity. The big thing for me is keeping hydrated, and I usually have to consciously think about it. I'm not the world's best about drinking enough water, like I know most of us aren't. And
me too.
I'm usually switching from like black coffee and beer.
Same coffee. Yeah.
So it's like a day before a show or, you know, tracking or something. I have to, okay, we got to start putting water in your body and getting prepped for it. But yeah, besides that, that's really it. I haven't really had too many other problems with, you know, cooking it, except for really just being ill, which I am a bit susceptible to sinus infections, and Louisiana is not the best for it. So a couple times a year you'll have a show where I'm just really struggling.
I had sinusitis a few years ago, and I had it once, and man, my forehead just went like Frankenstein, man, and it was absolutely horrible. Because you just felt so low and drained, and it, like your head was going to explode as well. I think you're right. I think as long as you drink plenty of water, something I need to do more of myself. Too much coffee and you know, water, resting. I know some people do warm-ups. I'm just curious because a lot of people have a different answer. Some will do the warm-ups to have a routine and go through breathing, and others are like, no, just, you know, they just can seem to do it. No, just turn up, sing, that's it, I'm done. Doesn't bother them. So it's always going up.
For the rough vocals, I mean, and I think it changes because everyone's doing them differently. So for me, essentially, my rough vocals are just singing to the point of overdrive, right? Like
Yeah.
I look at it as like turning my amp up. I'm just turning my amp up to the point where it starts to break up. I'm not really. I'm just singing. I'm just singing really, really, really loud. And so that's definitely, I think, different than people who are, doing special techniques to do harsh vocals. And maybe I'm putting city miles on my voice. I don't know, but it sounds good.
Yeah. Hey, as long as it works for everyone different. And is it the same for your bass playing? It just now you've been playing for quite a while, so you've got that experience. You just know naturally what to do, when to rest, what works, how to keep those fingers healthy.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I feel like I've already picked up a lot in terms of like being in fronting the band in the last year that we've been doing this. Like, oh yeah, you can do that when you don't sing the whole song, but you probably can't do that when you sing the whole song. So let's dial this back or whatever. In a live show where you're not getting multiple takes and stuff. There's like, I can kind of do this a little differently to get my voice like a little break, so that I can like put everything behind the next line, which has the more impact, and getting those little tricks down.
Yeah. And I know, I'm just curious, have you started writing and recording for the next release, or is that way too early? I just wondered maybe if you've got some leftover songs again that you could maybe use again.
Yeah, we're trying to honestly pace ourselves, because by the time we went in to record this, I think we already had 4 or 5 new ones ready.
Wow.
At this point, we're at like 7 or 8.
Whoa.
It's like, okay, we got to slow down. Like, we don't want to like rush a bunch of music out. We want to let this release, stand on its own, because we think it's really, really good. I don't want to like immediately shove it to the side by having
take the attention away.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, let's pump the brakes. Give it at least a year. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we were in the studio again at the end of next year. That wouldn't surprise me at all, because the music's there. I mean, there's obviously stuff that's got to get polished. Lyrics and some transitions here and there. All the riffs are there. The hooks are there.
That's a good problem to have, though, that you've got this. That you've obviously got this natural drive, passion, and love for the music. A theme that I've noticed throughout our conversation. And as you've said yourself, you're a lover of all this music, and that must be that. I'd have trouble in your position, because I'm naturally a hyper person, and I get very excitable easy, as you probably noticed as we're talking, and hence why I can ask multi-layered questions, because things pop in my mind, and then I get excited by what you're telling me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I'll go ask him about this. So I would have a hard time in your position trying to put that self-discipline where I'm going to keep this music back for later, because I don't want to detract from our current work, because I'd be like, no, let's get this one out and let's this one out. But you're right. You could say if you did that. Well, the obvious, as we've said, it takes attention away from the current release, but then it could be you get burnout as well, because you've literally got everything out, and then it's like, damn, what are we going to do? Say after this one, we've released everything too early. We're burnt out, or now we're even in a creative block. Even that could happen. So I think, and that's good advice for anybody in a band as well, or someone who's wanting to get into music, is learning to pace yourself, put that self-discipline in place, rather than trying to rush everything out, because then those areas could happen. So that was a very honest and interesting answer, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's all 3 of us have been doing. I mean, I'm the youngest member of the band, but all 3 of us have been doing it for at least 15 years. So we were just looking at it going, we'll still be a band for 18 months. If we put a record out, if we record, at the end of 2024, which gives this record a whole year to stand on its own and for people to love it and stuff before you shove something else in their face and this all gets forgotten. I'm in the age of people not really purchasing music. It's usually just the newest release what people are listening to. And it's good music, so we don't know.
It's the same. Quick. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's something that needs to be done even in the film industry to a point, where they can be rushing out sequels and remakes too fast, and people haven't had enough time to digest the current film. And then it takes, again, that attention away. I'm like, if you just pace this out rather than, right, we've got another spin-off series coming straight away about this character, whatever, and then you're bombarded with about 10 different properties on this one sole area. And like, man, I haven't even had enough time to process. And then also from a business perspective, as you said, it gives people time to fall in love with that album, develop that relationship with it. And then once you've got out there and you've been performing it as well, and it'd be like, hey, work begins on a new album. This will be, watch this space or dropping sometime this year or whatever. So, it's a very solid approach to take. I just wondered as well if there, my mind's going blank now. Hit this when that happens. Is there anything you would like to shout out, Nat, that we may have forgotten to mention? I just want people, anything at all, or anyone you want to shout out?
Yeah, definitely. So we mentioned the other bands I'm playing in. I do want to mention that. The band that Troy and AJ are in together is called Faustian. They have their EP came out maybe 4 or 5 months ago on Black Lion. Really, really good. Highly recommend it. They put on a killer live show too, and if you can see it, you definitely should. I think that's really all we have going on. I mentioned already Graveyard Lips. He put that record out maybe 2 months ago. He's got a full-length record out, and hopefully we're getting the road with that project soon too.
Well, definitely when we go off air in a minute, get me the links, for those other bands so I can add them on the description. I do want to especially thank you for your patience today, because I've got ongoing tech problems at the moment, which I hope to rectify in the next couple of days. So if I'm looking like I'm in some, I don't know, under like a UFO light or something at the moment, folks, probably, hey, it was in the news, wasn't it, the other day of Mexico? So hitting the theme unintentionally. So I do appreciate your patience, Nat, because unbeknown to everybody out there, Nat was waiting quite a while. The new system decided not to work or anything, so I didn't have a chance to hit him up with an email. Nat's been very patient, so I do appreciate that. I've enjoyed talking to you, man. It's been really interesting. I'd love to get you back on here to do a real show, in my opinion, when I'm in a bit better technical position. Do some certain deep dives on the songs as well, and the same helping your other bands and future releases. Folks, all of the links to Nat's music and We Do Not Belong Here will be in the description when I get them. I will be back up on the mothership, as another UFO reference, I guess, in the next few days, hopefully. So appreciate everyone's patience for sticking with us at the moment too. Get at me if anyone would like to come on the show to chat about music, any genre, indie film as well. We'll do something, we'll get it set up. Everybody have a good night, and it's awkward pause time where I hit end live and where it kind of freezes. See if it does it on the phone. Hopefully it doesn't just kick us. So in 3, 2, 1, awkward pause time. Here we go. And